I realize with any clock you can look at the time and say, well, it's that time somewhere. But I'm kind of interested in seeing that the times indicated on the four sides is whatever time it is in Watertown. And, again, I understand it's probably an archaic device in there and everything like that, but it's such a signature thing down there, and it just does. When you got the wrong, and it's been said about the broken window syndrome in cities and things, it makes you look like you can't get anything right when the clock hasn't got the right time on it. And I don't see what the big deal is about just getting someone in there. And if the mechanism is old and decrepit, there must be some new motor you can put in it to drive this thing. I just think those kind of little things are important.
Mr. Mayor, I can give you an update on it. As a matter of fact, it's a project that will be included in the capital budget you're about to receive. The cost associated with the repair and replacement of the clock is $160,000. The original clock that was built in 1901 was built by the residents of this community after they did a drive and collected $1,800, and that $1,800 paid for the purchase and installation of the clock. The city, after that, took on the responsibility of the maintenance of what has been referred to as the town clock. In the early 40s, the mechanisms within the clock started to fail, and the city made a decision to electrify those mechanisms. Those mechanisms have failed once again. We have had a number of individuals in to take a look at it. We have gotten cost estimates on doing it. Mr. Mayor, it drives me nuts. I don't wear a watch. I rely on the clocks in this community, and I want to see the hands on those dials be correct. And so it is a item in our budget. It is an item we'll look at, but it is an item that, based on all estimates, is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $160,000.
So what you're telling me is the current mechanism within that structure is not workable.
It's my understanding.
All right. Then I don't want to call it an emergency. I don't want to abuse the term, but I'm not sure we want to wait for deliberating over budgets and adopting one and waiting till January or to July 1st, when it's technically authorized. I think you got to get the thing fixed. And I don't know whether there's a limited number of vendors, because I assume there aren't too many people to do this type of stuff.
Well, Mr. Mayor, what the city is proposing is that we look to get some grant funding to help us pay for it.
Well, I don't know. I think it makes us look bad not to have it work. I think no offense, and I don't want anybody to take offense who's in this room. I think the Public Square project has been not beyond frustrating for staff, for the citizenry, and to sit there and you drive by the rubble of the fountain every day, and then the whole thing is, well, Verizon and National Grid won't do what they're supposed to do. I don't really care. I think the thing should be, we got to get this stuff moving. I think that clock should be fixed. I don't think we should sit there and do studies on it or apply for grants or anything else. I just think it should be fixed. And I don't know if there's a single provider for that technology, or I don't know what would go in it. If it's I assume it's not the same kind of technology that was in before. I just think it needs to be done. And I remember I watched for years. I drove by Watertown High School, and I used to constantly make fun of it. That clock sat there and had the wrong time on it for years. And I thought, thank God they finally fixed it. I don't want to put ourselves on the same schedule that clock was on. I think it's, and since you're not wearing a watch, I want to help you out too. I think it needs to be fixed. And I would certainly ask the council to authorize moving ahead to getting it fixed and not wait around for grants or donations or bake sales or whatever else we hope to do. It's a public expenditure. Just like the chief's car he wanted, just like Gaumont fire trucks, just like whatever else we buy. And I think it looks silly not to have it working.
No, there isn't, Mr. Mayor.
They're probably somewhere you could apply for something. But the fact is, how long are we going to dilly-dally with it? Maybe it isn't the biggest thing in the world, but it's the signature property in Watertown that's on every, it's on letterhead. It's the thing you see on postcards, and it doesn't work. And you can talk about downtown, you can talk about this LWRP all you want, your covered walkways and all this other stuff. You can talk about your speed bump, and you can talk about walkable communities and everything else. But if you look up to the clock and it doesn't work, it doesn't make you feel good about the city you live in. Now, I think that's just a cost of doing business. We took it on and we said we're going to maintain it. We dropped the ball as a city because we didn't anticipate
Mr. Mayor,
it.
we have not dropped the ball. We have done everything we could to keep it going.
It's not a personal affront. The city dropped the ball. It's not working, and we have no plan in place for getting it fixed other than to go through a lengthy capital project. I mean, if it's failing, hopefully you identify that and say, we got to get this in there. That's part of the planning process. On this particular item, and we plan well on a lot of things, I don't think we're ahead of the curve on it. And, it's my feeling. If the council wants to wait on it, they can.
Mr. Mayor, just if I could interject on that, because I understand what you're saying, and there is some frustration associated with it, but I think that frustration is equally shared with staff as well, because I can attest that the City Electric Department has been up into the tower on numerous occasions when we first notified them that it was starting to fail, doing all they can. It's an old piece of equipment. They did all they could with Band-Aids to nurse it along, but now it has given up the ghost, so to speak. And
Ghost in it, Bill?
Yeah, there's no other way to.
Well, I don't. It's not a question of whether Ralph Green and company are doing a good job or whether Mrs. Corvo is doing a good job or
you
anybody
said they
else.
dropped the ball. And
No, I said we.
Okay.
We includes you, him, me, her, and him over there. We all did.
Well, did we drop the ball because the police vehicle failed? I mean, things wear out; they fail.
Right.
But now you're right. Now we come up with.
But a
plan.
police vehicle, you can get one in a week or something.
Well, that's right, Mr. Mayor, and we started talking about this last year at budget time when I reviewed Mr. Green's budget and asked him to take a look at the status and to get someone in to take a look at the status of the clock so that we could have a plan together for the council so that we could address the continuing issues of the problems that we've been having with the clock. So we have planned.
Sure.
We have been talking about it. There is a plan in place, and that plan will be coming in front of the council this evening. And if the city council decides that in advance of adopting the budget, they want to spend $160,000 to repair the clock, that's fine. What staff is hoping is that we get the clock repaired.
Well, I just, no pun intended, Mr. Mayor, but I do feel that there's time to, look into the issue rather than just going to spend the $160 or whatever.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
there may very well
you
be
still
some
just put it
grants.
out for bids. It doesn't mean you're spending it.
No, we can do that.
Prepare the RFP and send it out if you want to go through that process.
We can do that.
Is there a majority of people who feel that way?
Throughout New York State, there are plenty of grants out there for churches and historic structures. Pretty much every month in Grant Action News, there's something out there for a church. And additionally, I was reading on one the other day. As long as it's actually in the, and I believe that building is in the, was the National Historic Register or the New York State Registry. Yes, as long as it's in that, we're available for a lot of grants that we wouldn't normally be available to. So I tend to think personally that there are some grants out there that we can find if that's the council's wish to go that way. And I'd like to investigate that if possible, but it's up to you guys what you'd like to do.